When I first arrived at the police academy, the air seemed denser than anywhere I had been before. Every sound, the echo of boots on pavement, the bark of orders, the sharp clang of lockers, pressed against my nerves. I told myself I was ready, that months of preparation had forged my confidence. Yet beneath the uniform, I felt like a child who had wandered into a world built for harder, stronger men. It was during orientation that I first noticed Captain Elias Ward, the senior officer assigned to our unit. He carried himself with an authority that silenced even the rowdiest recruits. His voice was steady, precise, the kind that brooked no refusal. But it wasn't only his command that drew me in, it was the subtle way his presence filled the room. Broad shoulders beneath a crisp shirt, eyes that missed nothing, and a calm self-possession that contrasted with my own anxious energy. I tried to focus on the schedule he outlined, yet my gaze returned to him again and again, betraying me. Training began with brutal intensity. At dawn we were pushed through drills, our muscles screaming before breakfast. The academy wanted to strip us down, not just physically, but mentally. Some recruits complained under their breath, others collapsed entirely. I pushed myself forward, desperate to prove I belonged, and every time I faltered, every time fatigue blurred my vision, I felt Captain Ward's eyes on me. They weren't the cold, detached eyes of an officer, waiting for weakness. No, there was a weight to his stare, as though he were measuring me against a private standard. One evening, after an especially grueling endurance test, I stayed behind to catch my breath, while the others trudged back to the dorms. My shirt clung to my skin, and sweat ran down into my eyes. When I finally straightened, he was there, watching me from the edge of the field. "You've got more fight in you than most," he said, his tone unreadable. "Thank you, sir," I answered, too quickly, trying not to reveal the rush of warmth his words sent through me. He lingered, his gaze steady, before finally turning and walking away. That single moment replayed in my mind long after I lay in my bunk. Compliments were rare at the academy. His had felt like a secret carved out of stone. At night, when the barracks grew quiet, I thought of someone else too, Daniel, my boyfriend back home. We had promised to withstand the distance, to survive these months apart. His last message blinked on my phone, "Proud of you. Stay strong." I typed back something simple, something safe. Yet I didn't confess the strange stir inside me, the way another man's approval had made me feel both seen and exposed. The following days, the pattern deepened. Captain Ward's instructions seemed directed at me more often than at the group. When he corrected my stance during weapons training, his hand lingered a fraction longer than necessary on my arm. When I stumbled during obstacle drills, his voice called me to my feet, low and firm, almost intimate. I told myself I was imagining it, that I was reading into gestures born of discipline, but the thought gnawed at me until denial felt thin. One late afternoon, as the sky burned orange, I found myself outside the mess hall, unable to shake exhaustion. My legs trembled from the day's exertions. A hand gripped my shoulder, firm, grounding. I turned, and there he was. "You're pushing yourself too hard," Ward said, his voice softer than I had ever heard it. "I don't want to fail," I admitted. His eyes searched mine, and for a breathless second, the noise of the academy faded. It was just the two of us, standing too close in the fading light. Then he released me, his expression unreadable. That night, when I thought sleep might finally claim me, a message slipped under my door. No signature, just 5 words in neat block letters. "Report to my room tonight." I stared at the note until my pulse thundered in my ears. Every instinct screamed caution. About Daniel, about rules, about consequences I couldn't afford. Yet beneath the fear was something else, something undeniable. A pull I couldn't ignore. I folded the paper, slipped it into my pocket, and lay back, staring at the ceiling. The academy had already tested my body and mind. Now it seemed ready to test my heart. I turned the note over and over my hands, as though repetition could change its meaning. "Report to my room tonight." The words pulsed like a hidden current beneath my ribs. Sleep was impossible. My mind ricocheted between images of Daniel's smile, the life we had promised each other, and Captain Ward's steady gaze. I kept asking myself why he had chosen me, why risk exposure, why invite trouble unless there was something unspoken between us all along. By the time the barracks fell into silence, I had already made my decision. My boots clicked softly against the corridor as I approached the officer's wing. The hall smelled faintly of polish and discipline, the kind of scent that warned against hesitation. When I reached his door, my hand lingered on the handle, cold sweat slicking my palm. One turn, and I could undo everything I thought I knew about loyalty. The door opened before I knocked. Captain Ward stood there, not in uniform but in a plain shirt, sleeves rolled to his forearms. The change unsettled me. Without the crisp authority of his attire, he seemed less like a figure of command and more like a man, one whose eyes held something dangerously close to longing. "Come in," he said. His voice carried no command this time, only invitation. I stepped inside. The room was spare, furnished with military neatness, a desk, a narrow bed, a locker. Yet the air felt different, thicker, as though the walls themselves conspired to keep secrets. "You got my note," he added, closing the door behind me. "Yes, sir," I replied, though my throat was dry. For a moment we stood there, silence heavy between us. He gestured to the chair by his desk, but I didn't move. My body felt caught between retreat and surrender. "You've been pushing yourself harder than anyone else," Ward said, breaking the quiet. "You think no one notices, but I do." "I can't afford to fall behind," I answered. "I can't fail." His expression softened. "You won't. You have more strength than you realize." The words should have been encouragement, nothing more. But the way he said them, low and steady, made my chest tighten. I wanted to believe him, not only as my captain, but as a man who saw something in me beyond drills and discipline. He stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from him. "Do you ever feel alone here?" he asked. I hesitated. "Sometimes. More than I expected." His gaze searched mine, unflinching. "Me too." The admission startled me. I had imagined him as untouchable, immune to doubt. Hearing that he felt loneliness made him real, fallible, even vulnerable. It also made the distance between us collapse. When his hand brushed mine, light, deliberate, I didn't pull away. Electricity surged through the contact, sharper than any command he had given me. My breath caught, and for an instant the memory of Daniel's voice rose inside me, pleading restraint. Yet the silence in this room, the nearness of Ward, drowned it out. "This is wrong," I whispered, though my voice lacked conviction. "Then, why does it feel inevitable?" he murmured. I searched his face for doubt, but found only intensity. Every barrier I had clung to, duty, loyalty, fear, felt fragile against the weight of his presence. The tension thickened, a taut wire ready to snap. I thought of the academy outside, of the dozens of cadets who would never imagine their captain standing this close to a recruit. I thought of Daniel, his trust fragile as glass. And still I didn't step back. Ward's hand settled on my shoulder, firm and grounding, the same way it had on the training field. But this time there was no audience, no guise of correction. His thumb grazed my collarbone, and the gesture carried more intimacy than words could hold. "Tell me to stop," he said, quietly. The words hung there, an open door to escape, but my mouth refused to shape them. My silence became consent, my stillness confession. In that suspended moment, I felt the full weight of choice pressing down on me. The choice between loyalty and desire, safety and risk. Between the man who loved me from afar and the one who stood before me, pulling me deeper into his orbit. Ward leaned closer, his breath brushing against my ear. The room seemed to shrink, heartbeat against heartbeat, until nothing existed beyond that fragile space between us. And then he kissed me. The kiss was not tentative. It carried the weight of all the silences, all the stolen glances, all the tension that had been building since the first day. His lips pressed firmly against mine, not as a question, but as an answer to one we had both been afraid to ask. I should have pulled away. I knew that, but instead I leaned into him, caught in the gravity of something forbidden, yet irresistible. His hand cupped the back of my neck, steady and sure, while mine hovered uncertainly at his chest. The steady beat beneath my palm reminded me this was no fantasy, no fleeting daydream. It was real, too real. When we parted, breathless, the room felt charged, as if the air itself had shifted. Captain Ward's eyes locked on mine, searching for regret, perhaps for resistance. He found neither. "This can't leave this room," he said quietly. "I know," I answered, though my voice shook. It should have ended there, a single reckless kiss sealed away like contraband. But the pull between us was stronger than logic, stronger than vows whispered into phones late at night to Daniel. The next moments blurred. Another kiss, hungrier than the first, his arms drawing me closer, the two of us stumbling toward the narrow bed as if gravity had claimed us both. I will not recount every detail of what followed. Some things live sharper in memory when left unspoken. But I know this. Every touch carried both ecstasy and guilt. Every whispered breath was both surrender and betrayal. My heart raced, not only from desire, but from the knowledge that with each passing second, I was crossing a line I could never uncross. Afterward, we lay in the dim light, the world hushed beyond the four walls. My body trembled, though not from exertion. It was the tremor of conscience, of knowing Daniel's name still lived inside me even as another man's arms encircled me. Ward spoke first, his voice low. "You should leave before anyone notices." I nodded, but I didn't move. "Do you regret it?" I asked, the question brittle. His silence stretched, and for a moment I feared the answer. Then he said, "I regret the risks, but not you." The words landed heavy, both comfort and burden. Because I couldn't echo them, not fully. My mind was already spiraling back to Daniel, to the trust one had fractured tonight. I pictured his face if he ever discovered the truth, the disappointment in his eyes. And yet, part of me still craved the heat of Ward's touch, the validation in his gaze. Eventually, I forced myself to rise. The room felt colder as I gathered myself, each movement a reminder of what I was leaving behind. At the door, Ward's voice stopped me. "No one can know. Not your fellow cadets, not anyone. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir," I replied, though my chest ached. I slipped back into the barracks under cover of darkness, heart pounding as if every creak of the floorboards might betray me. When I finally lay in my bunk, Daniel's last message still glowed on my phone screen. "Proud of you. Stay strong." My throat tightened as I read it again. He believed I was becoming a better man here, not one who would falter in the shadows. Sleep never came. Instead, I replayed the night in endless loops, Ward's kiss, his words, the warmth of his presence. Desire and guilt wrestled inside me until dawn. When the morning drills began, the academy seemed unchanged, boots striking in unison, orders shouted across the courtyard. But when I lifted my head, I saw him. Captain Ward stood before us, composed, unreadable, as though nothing had happened. Yet when his eyes briefly met mine, I caught a flicker, quick, subtle, but undeniable. A reminder that last night was not a dream, but a secret binding us both. As I forced my body through the motions of training, a single thought gnawed at me. Was what happened between us a mistake to bury, or the beginning of something I couldn't escape? The answer, I knew, would define the rest of my time at the academy. Days passed, yet the memory of that night clung to me like a second skin. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt Captain Ward's breath against my ear, his hand anchoring me, his voice warning that no one could ever know. I carried those words like contraband hidden beneath layers of routine. On the surface, nothing had changed. Training continued with merciless precision. We marched, drilled, fired at targets until our arms ached. The academy demanded perfection, and most cadets staggered under its weight. I should have been one of them, but something else gnawed at me, a private burden that discipline couldn't shake. I stole glances at Ward during drills, searching for signs of recognition. His face remained carved in stone, unreadable before the other cadets. Yet Every so often, when our eyes locked, I caught the smallest flicker, an acknowledgement that what bound us still smoldered beneath the surface. At night, Daniel's messages continued to arrive. "I miss you." Counting the days. His words cut deeper now. I would stare at my phone, fingers hovering, unable to confess what I had done. I typed replies that sounded steady. "I miss you too, I'm fine, don't worry," but each one felt like a lie. Guilt sat heavy in my chest. Yet it wasn't enough to sever the pull toward Ward. One evening after weapons training, I lingered in the locker room long after the others had left. My hands trembled as I cleaned my rifle, each motion mechanical. I told myself I needed solitude, but the truth was harder. I was waiting. The door opened and he stepped inside. Ward closed it quietly behind him, his expression neutral, but his eyes burning with something only I could recognize. "You stayed behind," he said. "So did you," I replied, voice low. A silence stretched, thick with the memory of our last encounter. I expected him to dismiss me, to retreat into the safety of professionalism. Instead, he moved closer until the scent of leather and gun oil blurred into the warmth of his presence. "This can't happen again," he said, though the tension in his jaw betrayed him. "I know," I whispered, "but do you want to stop?" His hesitation was answer enough. Before either of us spoke another word, his hand brushed against mine, deliberate, claiming. My pulse hammered, not only with desire, but with fear. Fear of discovery, of punishment, of betraying the man who trusted me beyond these walls. Yet when Ward leaned in, the fear dissolved into the fire of his touch. We didn't linger as long this time. The danger pressed in too close. Yet even in those stolen minutes, every gesture carried an urgency that felt unstoppable, as if the more we resisted, the stronger the pull became. When it ended, Ward stepped back, his chest rising and falling sharply. "You need to focus," he said. "If anyone suspects, it will destroy us both." I nodded, though my throat was tight. "And if I can't forget?" His eyes softened for just a heartbeat. "Then you'll have to learn to live with the weight." That night, lying in my bunk, his words echoed inside me. Learn to live with the weight. I stared at Daniel's photo on my phone, his familiar smile frozen in time. Did he already sense the shift in me, the fracture spreading across what we had built? Or would the truth remain buried, hidden behind rehearsed reassurances until distance wore us down completely? The academy had taught me discipline, obedience, strength. But it had also revealed a weakness I hadn't expected, an inability to choose between the love I had pledged and the desire that now consumed me. Morning drills came again, merciless as always. Sweat stung my eyes, boots struck the ground in unison, orders cut through the air. Yet beneath the rigid rhythm, a secret pulse beat between Captain Ward and me, invisible to everyone else. And I knew, with a certainty that unsettled me, that this was only the beginning.